morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Celtic Warband here, and finally, the Warhammer tournament to celebrate me hitting 5,000 subscribers has arrived. Now, this was supposed to happen about 6 or 7 months ago when I actually hit the 5k milestone, but time constraints in my personal life meant that I was unable to organize and hold the tournament until now. I am very excited to hold this tournament, as not only does it celebrate my 5,000 subscriber milestone, which is very huge to me, but it also gives me an excuse to upload some more Warhammer content on the channel. If you are interested in joining this tournament, please watch the entirety of this video as it outlines everything you need to know about the tournament. But even if you are not interested in joining, just watch the video anyway, because it will give you a good idea of how the tournament is structured and how the videos will play out. So let's go ahead and jump on in. Now, the prize pool. There is a silver lining that came from having to delay this tournament. For those of you who were unaware, the original prize, that is, was supposed to be a free copy of the new and upcoming Sega Total War Troy. However, CA's partnership with Epic Games and the fact that the game will be free for the first 24 hours upon release made it a pretty lame prize. So I've decided instead that I'm going to gift a free game of the winner's choice equal to the value of $50 US. For those of you who are in Canada, that's about $70 Canadian, to the winner of the tournament. However, the way that Steam works is that I can only gift games to a winner who lives in the same country as I do due to differences in exchange rate. So if it happens that the winner is from another country other than Canada, which is pretty likely to be honest, I will gift a global key from G2A. Now, with the $50 US cap, it does apply on there as well, so if it's on sale on Steam for $50, but it's crazy expensive on G2A, I'm going to have to go with the G2A price on that because that's the one that I am purchasing. However, we're not going to be super stingy about it. Like, if the game is $54 US, obviously a couple of dollars over is fine. That's not a big deal, but I think that the $50 US is a pretty fair limit for a prize for this tournament. So let's now dive into the structure of the tournament and how it will be played out, starting with the number of players and the bracket style. Now, for those of you who took part or watched my Napoleon tournament series, the bracket is exactly the same one. It's going to be a 16-player bracket with 4 rounds, and the players will be competing in a best of 3 to move on to the next round. So that means that a player will have to fight a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 12 battles to achieve victory. So it's pretty straightforward there. It's not really confusing at all. 3 battles per round, equaling 12. The final battle is also, like the final round, is also a best of 3. It's not just a one battle takes all. So let's go ahead on to the factions now. As many of you know, there are a huge number of playable factions in Warhammer 2. However, there are some people that may have little to no DLC that would be interested in joining the tournament, and that leaves their list of factions fairly thin. It's pretty crazy, the amount of factions that are part of a DLC and not part of the main game. So with that in mind, I've decided not to use the once you use it, you must lose it rule that I commonly do in tournaments, just because it really doesn't leave enough factions for the player to go through the entire tournament with. So instead, I've decided to adopt more of a hybrid rule to it. The player can only play a certain race once per round. So, as an example, if you play a Skaven faction in Battle 1 of Round 1, you cannot play a Skaven faction for Battle 2 and the possible Force Battle 3 in Round 1. But once you move forward to Round 2, you can then again choose the Skaven faction to play with. And I enjoy this rule because it forces players to use a variety of strategies in the tournament instead of a tried and true strategy with one particular faction that they have just hammered and hammered and hammered until they've gotten it perfect, and then they just sail through tournaments with that. I want to avoid, no offense to you, but I want to avoid that being the winner of the tournament. I kind of want to ensure that a well-rounded player will win the tournament, and another thing that I do want to do is I want to have both parties submit their 3 faction choices in a PM to me before starting the round, because this will prevent players from countering a faction that their opponent has chosen. So that way I know that it is predetermined and it's fair for both parties. So let's go ahead on to the battle rules themselves. There will, of course, need to be a host for tournament battles, and as such, there will be a responsibility for the initial setup of the battle settings, which I'm going to outline in very great detail, because this is one of the most important parts about the tournament. So, first off, the host must ensure that the unit setting be set to Ultra, as the game is best balanced on either large or Ultra unit scale. It can be set up by navigating to the Options tab, and then clicking on the Advanced in Graphics Settings, then clicking on Advanced, and then under Unit Size, selecting Ultra. And then once the battle is hosted, there needs to be a setup of the initial settings for the battle. So for every battle, the difficulty will be set to Normal. The time limit will be set to 20 minutes, as Warhammer 2 battles are usually pretty quick, so you don't need 40 minutes or an hour for Warhammer 2 battles, especially since it's just regular-sized armies. And the reduced time will also prevent camping and new box strategies. The funds will be set to large for rounds 1 and 2, but I will allow for ultra funds on round 3 and 4, so that contestants could afford some higher-tier armies, and we don't just get this carbon copy mid-tier range through the entire tournament. I would like a bit of variety. And then finally, and this is the most important step, the unit caps icon must be selected. This is a really crucial step because it allows the game to limit any spam armies, and it makes it more balanced and competitive play. So the game will actually automatically cap unit types once you reach that limit in your army comp. So all these settings will remain the same throughout the tournament, with the exception of the funds, which, as I said before, will be large for rounds 1 and 2, but then will be set to Ultra for rounds 3 and 4. And now we come to the maps. What maps have I selected for the Warhammer tournament? Each of the maps that I have selected were designed for multiplayer gameplay, so they are very, very even for both sides. It doesn't give a terrain advantage to either one. In Napoleon, it was a lot more important because terrain is such a key element in that time period, but in Warhammer that is really not the case, so I want to make sure that it's as even as possible. So for round 1, I have decided to go with Alpine Ridge. It's a good solid round 1 map. It's completely flat terrain except for a small hill that's in the very center, so it gives the contestant an interesting choice. They could be aggressive and try and take the hill advantage before their opponent does, or they can sit back and bombard the enemy and hope that losing the hill advantage won't cost them the game. So it's interesting to see what the contestants will come up with that. The second map is Blue Reach River. Now this map is also quite flat, and there's a really, really tiny river in the center of the map that actually divides the battlefield almost into two. So that's another interesting option. Do the contestants decide to keep all their troops on one side of the river, or do they divide their forces in hopes of flanking the enemy? It's totally up to you guys, but I'm excited to see what you come up with. And there's a lot of large forests on either side too, which could conceal troop movements and also set up some pretty juicy ambushes. The third round, a third round map, I think this is how you pronounce it, it's Herat Ridge. In this map, both players actually start on top of a large ridge, giving them even ground on both sides, but the terrain slopes down quite substantially on all sides of the ridge, so it could make troop movements and also a nice battle line really hard to manage, so I'm interested to see how you guys are going to overcome that. And also, there are pockets of trees scattered throughout the entirety of the map, so it will allow for troops to remain hidden, and I bet you we will see some pretty cheeky ambushes as well. And then finally, the last round map, the final round map, is Peak Pass. And in this map, the two contestants will be formed up on either side of a valley with two large ridges. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the fighting has to be funneled down into the valley between the ridges. There's some pretty commanding views of the valley below from these ridges or these hills. So it gives the perfect spot for some ranged units or artillery to fire down on them. And in addition, there's a large forest that run almost the entire length of the map on either side, so that gives the contestants an opportunity to send large amounts of troops around the enemy's flank unnoticed, and they could surprise them with some rear charges. It's gonna be fantastic. So the choice is yours, guys. Those are the maps. I wanted to tell you ahead of time so that you guys can have some time to practice before the tournament does begin. But I hope you guys are all excited as I am for this tournament. I do have a few final notes and considerations that I'd like to cover before we end the video. For those of you guys who are interested in participating in this tournament, I'm going to leave a link to my Discord in the description. It is a requirement that you join my Discord for the tournament, just because it makes it so much easier for contestants to organize times for battles. And you by no means have to stay after the tournament is over. It's solely for the convenience of organizing battle times, so if you get eliminated or the tournament ends, feel free to leave. It's not a mandatory thing that you have to stay, but instead of trying to search out Steam profiles or, oh, this contestant knows this contestant, let me ask him if he can get a hold of him to get the battle time, it would just be chaos. So I've always run them through my Discord, and for the most part, they're actually pretty easy to organize battle times, so that's why I make it a requirement. And I'm also going to leave a link to my video on how to find and send in battle replays, in case you don't know where your game saves them and how to find them. And if you are planning on taking part, please have reasonable availability as well. If you know you're going on vacation or you're going to be gone from your PC for an extended period of time, maybe sit this one out. Because multiple attempts to try and organize a game with you will result in a forfeit, and that gives your opponent a free sail up to the next round, and that can also make other contestants a little salty because they had to slog through round one, and meanwhile this guy got to move there without fighting anyone, so that it kind of forces me to try and find a replacement, and it's just a mess. So if you know that you're not going to have good availability, please just sit it out. And also, make sure that your PC is able to run Warhammer 2 without too many issues, because if you have multiple crashes in a battle or in a round, that will result in a forfeit for you as well, and that will be a forced forfeit, which I really don't want to do. But that is about it. So as of right now, I think many spots have been pre-reserved by active members in my Discord, so I think there's only 7 or 6 spots remaining for this tournament. So join the Discord as soon as you can and go to the Warhammer 2 sign-up channel to reserve your spot. Also, don't be upset if it is full. Put your name in anyways, you never know. I have had people in tournaments that have had to drop out before it began for, unforeseen circumstances, and people who have put their name in as reservist were able to actually get a spot in the tournament. So you never know, you may be lucky enough to get a spot after all. But again, guys, thank you so much to everyone who has supported my channel with views, comments, likes, and of course, subscribing to my channel. This has been a pretty tough year for me, and it encourages... it's just encouraging to me to see how many people enjoy my content, and this is just one of the ways that I try to give back to you guys as my awesome community. I really look forward to covering this tournament. So until the next time, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And as always, I will see you in the next one.